All right, let's just get right into it. We tend to think of the Salem witch trials as this kind of bizarre, almost unbelievable moment in history. But for the people actually living through it, it was an absolute nightmare. So in this explainer, we're going to step right into that terror and see exactly how a normal life could unravel into a death sentence. Just imagine this is you, okay? A fist hammers on your door before the sun is even up. It's the town constable. He doesn't ask you anything, he just accuses. He yanks you out of your home, past kids who are jeering and neighbors who just give you these cold, silent stares. These are the very people you baked bread with. And now they just watch as you're dragged through the mud. So this is the big question, right? How on earth did it come to this? One minute, you're living a hard, simple life, churning butter, trying to stay awake during those 3-hour sermons, and the very next, you're being accused of making a pact with the devil? What happened? Let's rewind and see what lit the match. So yeah, it all kicks off with that knock at the door, but it's who is on the other side and who's standing there in the crowd that really seals your fate. This wasn't some faceless government official. The accusation came from right next door. And these aren't fairy tale monsters, not at all. These are your neighbors. There's the woman whose son you helped save from smallpox. There's that family that's always had their eye on your little plot of land. And then there are the young girls, whose wild fits and terrified screams are about to become your death warrant. You're hauled into the town meeting house. The air is just thick with tension. And there he is, Magistrate Hawthorne, a man with all the power, leaning in and asking this absolutely impossible question. See, it's not a search for truth. It's a demand for a confession. How do you even begin to answer a question like that? To really understand how a single accusation could just explode into mass hysteria, we have to look at the world you were living in. Salem in 1692, well, it was basically a tinderbox just waiting for a spark. This really puts it into perspective, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the sheer physical grind of hard labor and the mental exhaustion of these endless sermons. And on the other, you have this constant simmering fear of smallpox, fear of raids from the woods, and towering over all of it, this ever-present terror of the devil and his influence. And that fear, it was being stoked from the pulpit. Influential preachers gave sermons that weren't just about faith. They were about a cosmic war, a war against Satan, whose agents, witches, could be anyone, anywhere. Behind every sick cow, every failed crop, every strange shadow, they said the devil was at work. So, with an entire community primed by fear and this intense religious fervor, it's really no surprise that everyday normal things started to look, well, sinister. This next part shows how the totally mundane got twisted into something malicious. I mean, look at this. The logic is just breathtakingly twisted. You give a neighbor some herbal tea for their cough? Nope, you just brewed Satan's brew. That lazy old black cat you have napping by the fire? That's a demon in fur. And a freckle? A freckle you've had your whole life? That becomes physical proof of a pact with the devil, his actual brand on your skin. And then came the deadliest weapon of them all, a type of proof that was literally impossible to fight. It was called spectral evidence, and it was delivered with this chilling certainty by the young accusers. Think about this for a second. The court accepted as fact that your spirit, your specter, could just leave your body while you slept and go torment people. So how do you prove your ghost was tucked in bed all night? You can't. It's the perfect, unbeatable accusation. So, armed with this spectral evidence and a long list of petty grudges, the accusers turned the courtroom, the town meeting house, into a theater of absolute madness. Okay, get a load of this. They would use something called a touch test. A girl would be thrashing around screaming, supposedly being tormented by your specter. You are then forced to touch her. If she suddenly calms down, that's not the power of suggestion. Oh no, it's seen as proof that your evil spirit has fled from her and returned to you. Bam, you're guilty. It's a complete and total trap. And the evidence just got more and more absurd. They literally baked a witch cake with an accuser's urine and fed it to a dog, hoping the dog would identify you. It didn't work, but you were still blamed. Everything became a trap. You miss church? You must be godless. You pray too much? Whoa, you're obviously a witch trying to look pious. You just couldn't win. And this wasn't just a few isolated cases. This hysteria spread like an infection. Before it finally burned itself out, more than 200 people, Men, women, and even a 4-year-old girl named Dorcas Good were formally accused of witchcraft. So, you're found guilty, and now you face this final, horrible choice. You can confess to a crime you didn't commit, name other innocent people as witches and live with that shame, or you can maintain your innocence and be executed, just like Rebecca Nurse, a respected elder who was hanged, or Giles Corey, an old farmer who was pressed to death with stones because he refused to even enter a plea. Eventually, the madness had to stop. But the damage was done, and it left behind a legacy of fear, betrayal, and injustice that really scarred that community forever. The beginning of the end came in 1693, when the governor finally banned spectral evidence. Without it, the whole legal case against people just fell apart. Some officials, like Judge Samuel Sewell, even made public apologies. But for the victims, well, there was very little justice. The people who wanted your land, they got it. The magistrate who condemned you, he got rich. And even if you survived, even if you were eventually freed, life was never, ever the same. Your name was poison. Your property was gone. Your old friends would literally bolt their doors when you walked by. You carried that brand of witch for the rest of your days, like a ghost in your own town. When you boil it all down, the trials were a tragic scam built on a foundation of fear. It was this perfect storm of religious extremism, social anxiety, and just plain old personal greed that turned an entire community against itself. It showed just how easily fear can turn friends into enemies. And that leaves us with a final, pretty chilling question. The story of Salem is so much more than a historical event. It's a warning, really, a warning about what happens when fear is allowed to overrule reason. It forces us to ask, when we let fear be our guide, when we start looking for scapegoats for our problems, who are the witches we're hunting today?